cause the results to be skewed. According to my calculations, since they were so different, the device must have been faulty.
What led you to believe that the device was faulty?
There are 4 alternative theories that explain why Danny Dawson's actual blood alcohol concentration was much different from what the device recorded.
You mentioned 4 alternative theories. I'd like to review each one independently.
Of course.
What was your first alternative theory?
Hypoglycemia.
What is hypoglycemia?
Hypoglycemia is a condition in which a person's blood sugar is too low. This causes their body to create alcohols.
And how does hypoglycemia explain a higher BAC level?
Well, breath analysis machines register all alcohols present, whether they come from a drink or are auto-generated. At the time the test was given, Ms. Dawson hadn't eaten for several hours, giving her body enough time for her blood sugar to drop and her body to create alcohols. If the machine picked up on any of those auto-generated alcohols, the results would be skewed.
What was your second alternative theory?
As I said, the machine picks up all alcohols present, which includes any lingering within the mouth, which could be the result of vomiting or eructation or even dental work. If the machine picked up on any alcohol lingering within Ms. Dawson's mouth, the results would be skewed.
You mentioned eructation. What is that?
I'm sorry. Eructation is a burp or a belch.
What was your third alternative theory?
Breath analysis machines use a standard blood-to-breath ratio, which is absurd because that ratio varies within a person over a period of time. A person's actual ratio is lower when they are eliminating alcohol than it is while they are absorbing it. This means that a person will blow a higher alcohol concentration while eliminating alcohol than while absorbing it, even though their actual blood alcohol concentration is the same.
Are there any other alternative theories?
Yes. As I said, the machine views a standard ratio, but that ratio not only varies within a person, it varies from person to person. If Ms. Dawson's actual ratio were lower than the standard used by the machine, the results would be skewed regardless of how much alcohol she drank or how many tests were given.
Doctor, in your medical opinion, would you say that at the time of the accident, the defendant was heavily intoxicated?
No. Based on the theories I've explained, there's no definitive way to prove that the device was not faulty.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Okay. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
Good morning, Dr. Norton.
Good morning.
I'm just going to ask you a couple questions about Danny Dawson's breath alcohol concentration on the night of the accident.
Absolutely.
And now I'm direct with your directing attorney. You said something about hypoglycemia, isn't that right?
Correct.
You spoke with the defendant, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
She never said she had hypoglycemia?
No, she didn't. But since it had been several hours since she had eaten, I concluded that her blood sugar could possibly have dropped.
Now, I'd like to talk about the defendant's breath alcohol concentration. Now, you said it was around 0.08, isn't that right?
Correct.
You're absolutely certain it was not below 0.08, isn't that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Meaning that it was over 0.08.
Yeah, around, possibly a little over, yes.
In your words, it's inarguable that Danny Dawson was too drunk to drive that night.
Well, yes, I believe people should not drive while intoxicated.
I wasn't asking about your opinion on whether people should drink or drive. I was asking you about the defendant, and she was too drunk to drive that night.
Yes, you were not supposed to drive while intoxicated.
Your Honor, objection. This witness cannot testify as to whether or not the defendant was too drunk to drive. She's a medical expert, and she's not a legal expert.
Your Honor, I'm not asking her to interpret the law. I'm asking her based on her conclusions. And she said that Danny Dawson was over 0.08, meaning she was intoxicated.
Your Honor, may I respond? In order for her to say that that the defendant was too drunk to drive, she would first have to interpret the law and then apply some specialized knowledge to the law. Now, because the doctor is a doctor, she's not able to offer this conclusion.
Your Honor, may I respond?
What law would she have to interpret to determine whether this defendant was drunk? Could she just rely on her tests and her interactions?
She could rely on her tests and interactions in determining what the defendant's blood alcohol concentration is. But she can't testify as to whether or not she was legally able to drive based on her level of intoxication.
Opposing counsel opened the door on their last question, asking whether Danny Dawson, the defendant, was heavily intoxicated that night.
Was that your last question?
It was, and I asked in her medical opinion.
I think that cracks the door, and I think she's free to bust through it, so.
Now, Dr. Norton, in your own words, it's inarguable that the defendant was too drunk to drive that night.
That is correct.
Pass it.
Read recommendation?
No, Your Honor.
You may step down. Defense, do you have any further witnesses?
No, Your Honor. At this time, the defense rests our case in chief and would request a brief recess before closing arguments.
How does 5 minutes sound?
Your Honor, that's fine. The prosecution closed on the evidence.
Okay, I have 11:31, so why don't we say 11:36?
Yes, Your Honor.